What's up, tribe? How you guys doing? Happy hump day, you guys. Happy hump day. So we are here for part one of the OJ Simpson Made in America documentary. Now, this documentary, I know El Teddy sent y'all on time. He asked for some extra time. My bad. Well, welcome everybody who is here. If you came over from El Teddy's, thank you. If you just stumbled on in here, y'all come on in. Y'all hit the like button. Y'all know what to do. So we said, in light of OJ Simpson's passing, we were going to revisit this documentary because I told you guys that I, for a very, very long time, was one of those people that felt like either OJ Simpson was innocent or OJ Simpson had help, right? I always felt like he knew what was going on and he was somewhat involved, but I had my, call it a conspiracy theory, whatever. But I had my thoughts on whether I thought he really was actually the one who did it. But then I watched this documentary. This documentary came out, I think we said what year it was, but maybe about 10 years ago, 8 to 10 years ago, this documentary came out. It was a 30 on 30. Hey, good boy. Hey, boo. I stole your line the other day. You see my title? I stole good boy's line when I did my the Tasha Scott review the other day, and I said the title was "Oh Tasha." I heard good boy in my head. I heard you in my head, good boy. I said, "Oh Tasha," but yeah, okay. 2016. Thank you, boo. So once I watched this documentary, I remember changing my mind, but I couldn't remember exactly why. So I watched part one. We're gonna do each part. I tried to double it up, y'all. But it's an hour and a half long, and I just couldn't get both of them done yesterday. And then today, since I've been home, I've been doing stuff. So I'm going to watch part two tonight, and we're going to try to do part two tomorrow. But we're going to get it done, in the next couple of days. So here are my notes from part one. Again, it is on Netflix, so I know people were looking for it. If you have Netflix, you can get it for free. If you don't have Netflix, you can get it for $20. For the whole, I think it's 5 episodes, 4 to 5 episodes. You can get for $20. You can get the whole 4 to 5 episodes. Down to the I think Amazon Prime. I think you can get it on Amazon Prime for $19.99. But if you have Netflix, go on and just get over to the Netflix. Okay. So so the thing I love about this documentary is that, in my opinion, it was a very thorough documentary. Okay, you can get on ESPN On Demand too. Okay, thank you, Majestic. Majestic said if you have ESPN On Demand, you can catch it there too. Okay. I remember watching it in real time. I watched it when it actually came out, and yes, because I watched 30 on 30 anyway. That's one of the things that stays in my DVR. I love 30 on 30 documentaries. For me, it's great. It's a great documentary because, again, it is very, very thorough. So part one really lays the foundation. It doesn't even get into the case. As a matter of fact, we don't even meet Nicole to the end. But I think it's important for us to go over what happened in the first, for us to go over it so you can get an idea of who this man was, where he came from, and his thought process and belief, right? Yeah, it did win it won an Oscar. Okay, I knew it won some awards. I thought it won an Emmy, but I definitely knew it won some awards. I did not see this. Is why it's good to watch it. I didn't remember how much I ain't like this man. Because let's be clear, prior to what happened to Nicole, OJ Simpson was a name that I knew. But his era of football wasn't my era of football. Like, he retired from the football league before I started watching football. So I knew who he was, obviously. I knew he was a great football player. I knew him from acting. I knew him from, the different things. But I didn't grow up in the OJ Simpson era, right? It's like somebody 10 years from now trying to remember the LeBron James era. Like, you know who he is. You know he was a phenomenal player, but he just wasn't your era. But as I was rewatching this documentary, I was like, now I know why I like this dude. So let's get into it. So the episode starts off, the first part, The first part, it starts off with OJ at his parole hearing from what happened in Nevada. The documentary will sort of get into the details of what happened in Nevada, but to make a long story short, y'all know he went to jail in Nevada like 10 years after he was acquitted of unaliving his wife, ex-wife at the time. You see him going through the whole regular questions at the parole hearing, and then you see this white. See this. Let me tell y'all what I don't like. This is what y'all know I don't like when people piss on my leg and tell me it's raining. And there's a couple of times in this documentary that I'm gonna tell you that people was pissing on my leg and tell me it was raining. But here go the first one right here. So here come this white woman down to the parole board. They asking him questions about, well, you know, what have you been doing since you've been in jail? What types of activities have you been involved in? You know, the normal parole hearing kind of stuff, you know. Then this woman gonna say, well, what about the last time you were arrested? Like, weren't you arrested for the first time when you were 43 years old? And you could literally see the irritation on O.J. Simpson's face the minute she mentioned it, because he already knew where she was going. He was like, I'm sorry, excuse me? You know, like, what? She said, well, I mean, this isn't the first time you were arrested, right? Like, you were arrested when you were 43, right? And you could, like I said, you could see it in his face, like he wanted to cuss this lady out, but he knew he couldn't cuss her out. And he was like, yeah, I mean, I think that's about right. Well, why were you arrested? First of all, it pissed me off because regardless of whether you think OJ did it or not, he was never convicted. He was acquitted. Okay? So I don't even feel like that should have been a conversation that they should have been having at his parole hearing for something that happened 10 years later that it had nothing to do. Like, what he was convicted of in Nevada wasn't even a violent. I mean, I guess it was, but y'all know what I'm saying. So I was just like, oh, we already know where we're going with this. So you knew, like, he knew what it was. He knew where she was going with it. I knew she was going with it, but it pissed me off because I was like, come on now, you know what it is. Now, I'm sure that there's probably a protocol, and maybe that's why she had to do it that way, because she was trying to get it on the record without coming right out and saying it. But I just feel like, you know, if we're going to talk about prison reform, and we're going to get, again, this don't have nothing to do with O.J. Simpson, because, again, we're not talking about his particular case, but just the point that she was able to bring up something that he was literally acquitted of. He was not convicted. Ma'am, that shouldn't even be a factor here. Now, had he been acquitted, had he been convicted, okay, fine, it's a conversation. But he was never acquitted. He was never convicted. So I don't understand why this is even a conversation. That shouldn't even be coming up. But neither here nor there. So from there, then we go to the flashback all the way back to him in junior. We found out that he started off at junior college and then he went to USC, right? We meet his wife, Marguerite Simpson. That was his first wife. We're going to get back to Miss Marguerite in a minute. We're going to get back to her, okay? Because let me tell you something. I got smoke for everybody. Okay? But we're going to get back to Miss Marguerite. Andrew said, but your past always comes up in parole hearings. White people wasn't gonna never let him forget he got away. Oh, exactly, good boy. Exactly. Now, I've never been to a parole hearing, right? But it seems to me like that's not fair. And I know life isn't fair. I don't want nobody telling me life isn't fair. I'm talking about it's not fair to what the process is about, right? The process is about whether you have rehabilitated for the crime you were convicted of. I just think, and I understand in O.J. Simpson's case, I understand what it was, but I'm just saying the criminal justice system as a whole, for you to be able to bring up something from 10 years ago that has absolutely nothing to do with why I'm sitting in front of you right now, that I was never even convicted of, I think is effed up. But I understand that it was never about right or wrong. It was about making O.J. Simpson pay for what they felt like he got away with. But Miss Marguerite, I'm coming back to you. Give me a minute. And you know, something else that, and I'm kind of mad at myself about these things. I picked up on a whole lot of microaggressions that I didn't pick up on, or at least I don't remember picking up on the first time around. Now, maybe I picked up on it, but I wasn't doing YouTube and I wasn't reviewing it. So maybe my brain was in a different spot. You know, when you're listening to take notes, it's different than when you're just watching it for your own entertainment. But they played a clip of his coach, Coach McKay, who was the coach at USC. And they quoted, like they had Coach McKay, they were like interviewing him, asking him about OJ Simpson, and he called that man a boy. He was like, well, we're really excited about OJ Simpson. The boy is going to do great things here. I said, the boy? Baby, I wrote it in my notes. I said, see, I didn't catch this the first time around. But it was the 1960s, okay? It was the 1960s. But it was a couple of times that they called that man a boy. That wasn't the first time. Somebody else called him a boy too. But I wrote it in my notes, okay? So then we get to a little bit of history of the Great Migration. Y'all know I do this for a living. Y'all know I talk about the Great Migration. And so the Great Migration, a lot of people from the Mid-South moved out west, right? The South moved up north, Chicago, Detroit, DC, New York. But people who were like Louisiana, Texas, that Mid-South, they moved out. They moved out west, they moved out to California. And so they talked about how, back then California was seen as the land of milk and honey. Everybody was like, we're going to move to LA. It's not going to be no racism. It's not going, it's just going to be palm trees and love, it's going to be all great. Of course, we know that wasn't to be the case. Between the year of 1940 and 1960, they said that like the Black population exploded in LA. Now, because California was building up the way it was, there was a lot of job opportunity. You had the Boeing plant there. You had a lot of things there where people could go and work and make good money, especially minorities. So O.J. Simpson's family, they migrated from, I believe it was Georgia. I don't think I wrote down the state, but I believe it was Georgia. And they migrated to San Francisco. They ended up moving into public housing. It was old army barracks that had been converted into houses. And he grew up, single mom, didn't have a whole lot of money. His mom worked a graveyard shift, so him and his siblings were alone and had to sort of fend for themselves a lot. They talked about, they had a lot of his childhood friends that his cousins and childhood friends that were talking, and they were talking about how, they used to run the streets, back then they were doing petty crime, but it was like petty crime to survive petty crime, but it was like, they said they used to break in people's houses. They used to rob people. Again, when I say petty crime, I know it's not the kind of stuff like it's crime, but they talked about how, their mom struggled, right? Now his daddy was around, but his daddy wasn't really around. And we found out later on in the documentary that his daddy was a homosexual. And I ain't got no problem with that. But back in the 1950s, 1940s, that was definitely a taboo conversation. And one of his friends told the story about how he went with OJ over to his dad's house one day to get some money or something. And his dad opened the door and he had on a bathrobe, which wasn't a big deal until they saw another man in the back of the room. And he also had on a bathrobe. And he said how, basically when they left, OJ was clearly embarrassed. OJ, was clearly, they said you could cut the tension. And at a certain point, they just started laughing and sort of broke the tension, and how basically none of his friends ever really approached that subject with him. His father was a part of his life. They showed his father being around, like when he was playing in the NFL and stuff like that. And it was something that was never talked about publicly. It was certainly not something that was even talked about among his friends. His friends were like, yeah, no, we never brought it up. Like the guy that was with him that day told the rest of the friend group, but they never really talked to him about it. So, and I'm sure that was something that probably affected him. Well, they said bisexual. They didn't say gay. They said bisexual. I guess because he at one point was married with children. So, Okay, so that came up. So then they got into a history of the LAPD. They talked about how the LAPD was a very corrupt police force until a man by the name of Chief Parker took over. Now, Chief Parker was very successful with getting rid of a lot of the corruption and the bribery that was going on. However, Chief Parker was racist. And they said that rumor was that not only was he racist, but rumor was that he even recruited officers to join the police force from Klan rallies. Now, my question is, that means he was at the Klan rally, right? If he was recruiting people from the Klan rally, he was there too, right? So neither here nor there. And again, there were clips of Chief Parker making comments like when people questioned it. So basically, he fostered he fostered what's what I'm looking for. An environment isn't the word I'm looking for, but he fostered a mindset of racism, right? That basically we're going to police the white neighborhoods, we're going to keep the white neighborhoods safe, and whatever going on down with the niggas, let the niggas be the niggas. That was basically how it was. And they actually had interviews with him where people were questioning him about the lack of resources and policing in the black neighborhoods. And he was like, well, I've offered to just not go down there at all. I've told them, well, fine. And if y'all don't like the way we police in the neighborhood, we would just won't come to the neighborhood. There was also quotes of him basically saying, well, we ain't asked him to come here. Yeah, that's it. Thank you, Marty. He set a tone. He set a tone for the racism. We ain't asked him to come here. Like, they can go back to where they came from. If they don't like the way we run in our city, they can go back to where they came from. So this was like the climate long before Rodney King, long before, the 1990s. This was the climate of what was going on in LAPD. And they talked about how, black kids and, folks would be taken off the street and beaten for the minor of infractions. So they gave you a little bit of history of that. So they talk about the LA riots in 1965, or the Watts riots, they called them, in 1965, where basically it started because there was a situation with two black guys that got into a situation. They were getting arrested. They were brothers. Their mother came down there to find out what was going on, and there was a scuffle. And then, of course, that erupted into the riots that ended up happening down to the Watts. So while all of this was going on, they talked about, while these things were happening in LA, this is around the time that O.J. Simpson found his way at USC. And they were talking about how USC was sort of like a cocoon to the community. Now, USC is dead smack in the middle of the hood. However, it is almost like it's its own world. It's in a bubble. And they're told, when I say they, the students at USC are told, don't y'all go outside of the campus. You don't want to go out there with the Eagles, and they knew not to come on campus because they knew it was going to be a whole nother situation if they, violated, right, the invisible line. So they talked about how white USC was. And they talked about how basically O.J. Simpson was pretty much, for most people who lived on campus or who went to USC at the time that O.J. Simpson came to USC, they were saying how he's probably the only black guy that they'd ever really been around, right? And he was like, the hero worship of it all. With him walking across campus, and y'all know what it is. Like, it's cool when they're doing something for us, when they're entertaining us, then they're cool black guys, right? Everybody else is an igga. And we'll get to that situation happened along those lines, and we'll get to that a little bit later. So from that, one of O.J. Simpson's friends was explaining that O.J. Simpson was placed in that world, and it was almost like he became seduced with being in that world where they accepted him because of the service he provided to them. Right? Exactly. I'm not black. I'm OJ. He never wanted to be seen as a black man. He never wanted to be identified by a black man, as a black man. He just wanted to be seen as OJ. And he strived his entire life to be that person that you're not black, you're not one of them, you're just OJ. He was okay with that, right? He was okay with that. So his cousin or his friend even said he was seduced by that culture. He was seduced by it. But I don't know if I would say he was seduced as much as he allowed himself to be seduced. You know what I'm saying? Like he wanted to be that. You know? Okay. So in 1968, Black athletes were taking a stand. He wanted to be seen by his abilities rather than his race. Right. But so, and Andrew, that's a good point, because to a certain extent, I understand, but because I kind of waver in that space, because I understand saying, listen, I don't want to be seen by I don't want to lead with my color. But unfortunately, the environment in which he was in, you were, right? But I understood to an extent of what I feel like he went to the extreme with it. We'll get there. But to a certain extent, I understood the point he was trying to make. But anyway, we'll get there. My dad loved OJ when he played for the terrible Bills. I live in Torrance, California. It's mainly not my color people. The history of cop harassment is so well known here. People still like, oh, I don't know when coming to visit me to this day. Oh, I don't know when coming to visit me. Oh, okay. People don't want to come in your neighborhood, girl. So in the late 1960s, 1968, you had this whole Black athlete movement, right? You had Muhammad Ali and Jim Brown and Elgin Baylor. And, this is when Muhammad Ali was refusing to go and to be drafted, and he was stripped of his title. And a lot of the male Black athletes, stood in solidarity with Muhammad Ali. There was even a movement at one point in time for them to boycott the 1968 Olympic Games. They reached out to O.J. Simpson to basically be a part of it. O.J. Simpson was like, yeah, no, I'm good. He was like, yeah, no, I'm good. He was like, first of all, yes, I run track, but I'm not even going to the Olympics because that's football season. So I'm not going to the Olympics. So I really ain't got nothing to do with it. And he basically said, listen, that's not my fight. Like, if they want to protest and they want to boycott and they want to do that, that's fine. That's cool for them, but I ain't doing it. And there was an interview where he even spoke on it years later. And he said, look, some of those people, they paid the price for that. It stifled their career. They were blackballed, and, their career could have gone further had they not engaged. We know that famously in the 1968 Olympics, the two Olympic runners, Tommy and Carlos, no disrespect, their last names escape me right now, so I don't mean no disrespect calling them men by their first name. He spoke on how their career really took a hit as a result, which is true, right? Two things can be true at the same time, right? Were they okay with their career taking a hit because they knew the risk going in? I think so. I don't think anybody went into that being naive about there being backlash and there being a potential, blackball on them. So I don't think any of those men and women lived in that regret. However, it definitely would have been a big win if they could have gotten O.J. Simpson, because at this point O.J. Simpson was like the number one player in the country, college player in the country. They talked about the run, that catapulted him to the superstardom. It was on national television, which back then was a big deal for a college game to be nationally televised. And he had this long run and won the game. So he won the Heisman Trophy as a running back, which is not normal. I mean, it happens, but it's not normal. He was like Sports Illustrated Player of the Year. Like, he was the man. And so they just talked about how it really would have been a great thing had he stood with them. And again, that is when O.J. Simpson was like, I'm not black, I'm O.J. So then they talked about, again, also what was going on in 1968, which we all know, Martin Luther King being assassinated, Robert Kennedy being assassinated, continuous riots. That's the year that he won the Heisman. And then there was a situation where, what's up, Star? There was a situation where they were at a dinner, and OJ Simpson was at a table with these other athletes, but they were black. And this white woman said, "Look at OJ Simpson over there with those niggers." And his friend told him later on what the woman said, and his friend was like, "Isn't that terrible? That was, basically that was some disrespectful shit, And OJ was like, "No, that was great. Don't you see? She doesn't see me as a black man. I'm just OJ." So he gets drafted into the NBA, NFL, to the Buffalo Bills, which, Buffalo, y'all know, going from California to Buffalo was definitely a shock. It was definitely a blow. He hated the weather. The coach was horrible, didn't utilize him correctly. But of course, he again was, he was OJ Simpson, and he was getting all of these endorsement deals from RIP. And he was actually one of the first black athletes to get these major endorsements. He was doing Chevrolet commercials. He was doing RC Cola commercials, and he was one of the first black athletes that were able to do that, right? No, he absolutely didn't want to go to Buffalo. He didn't want to be in Buffalo. Couldn't catch the ball, right? They were trying to turn him into a wide receiver, and he could not catch the ball. That wasn't his talent. So, they fired the coach. They brought in a new coach who was able to utilize his talents, and made him a pure running back. And of course, then he starts doing all kinds of things. So it flips back a little bit to back when he was a kid. So let me tell you a few stories about OJ Simpson as a kid. And again, I feel like this will give us a little more insight into who OJ Simpson was. So they were asking his friends, they asked Al Collins, and we know that Al Cowlings is the guy that he was with the day of the infamous Bronco chase. But we're going to get back to Al in a minute too. Al, I got my eyes on you too, sir. Like I said, everybody gonna get it. Okay, Al, Marguerite, y'all coming up. So they talked about how OJ was really great. I want y'all to pay attention to what I'm going to tell y'all, because it's going to be important moving forward, okay? Pay attention. He said that they said that OJ was really great at being able to talk his way out of things. And he was also really great at getting other people to take the rap for him when he got in trouble. You listening? Really great with getting out of trouble. Partly because he was a star athlete and, he was OJ Simpson. But they say he had the gift of gab, and he was really good at convincing people, and talking people out of things. They say he was really good at that. Then, hold on a second. I'm sorry. So they told this one story about they were at school, and him and his friends were in the bathroom shooting dice. And the coach caught him in the bathroom shooting dice. And they tried to convince the coach, man, don't snitch on us. We'll go to class. Just let us go to class. And the coach was like, nah. Y'all want to, y'all down here cutting class, gambling in the bathroom. Nah, y'all going to the principal's office. So he walked them down to the principal's office, dropped them off at the principal's office, told the assistant principal, caught these guys in the bathroom gambling. Principal said, cool, I got it from Hill, their assistant principal. And the coach walked out the door. O.J. Simpson got up to walk out with the coach. The assistant principal said, where are you going? He said, oh, I was just with the coach. I was helping the coach bring these guys down here to you. Turned around and walked out the door and left his friends there to take the hit. So you ain't got but one time for me. You ain't got but one time for me. But they said he would do stuff like that all the time. The next story they told, his best friend, Al Cowlings. I don't know. I'm saying it wrong. Al Cowlings. Yeah, they let him get away with. That's what I'm saying. Ain't no way in the world. Hell to the nizzle. So Al Cowlings. They said that Al dated Marguerite first. And they said that Marguerite was a good girl. Now, I'm not too convinced of how much of a good girl she was, because let me tell you the story. They said Al was dating Marguerite first. Everybody knew they was going steady. Mind you, y'all, this is the early 1960s, okay? Everybody knew they was going steady. Al was OJ's best friend. They said one day, OJ and a couple of his friends, not Al, a couple of his other friends, they were on their way to a party. They were driving a car. I don't know where they got the car from. Not my business. I'm sure that's another story. But they were driving this car. And they went over to Marguerite's house and picked Marguerite up to take her to the party. And all of his friends was like, yo, whoa, that's Al's girl. What are we doing here? Why are we picking her up? And OJ was like, be cool. It's cool. Said they got to the party. They pull up, Marguerite in the front seat with OJ. They in the back seat. Al sees them and gets pissed off. They said Al starts shaking the car. He mad as hell. Ready to whoop somebody's ass. They said Marguerite gets out the car and says, Al, stop it. They said he stops. And next thing you knew, OJ and Marguerite were a couple. And OJ, Marguerite, and Al were all hanging out together. As the three of them were all hanging out together like everything was all hunky-dory cool. Now, I'm side-eyeing everybody in that situation. First of all, I'm side-eyeing you, Marguerite. That's some dirty dog shit. You knew they were best friends. Clearly, Al thought you were still his girl. Because when you showed up at the party with OJ, he was ready to go off, okay? Al, I'm side-eyeing you because clearly this person means you no good intended. And you stayed friends with him. Maybe because you saw who he was going to be. Maybe because at the time he already was somebody among the neighborhood. Okay, he was already a star athlete. I don't know. And OJ, you just a dirty dog. You's a dirty, dirty dog. Now, I remember hearing that when all this stuff first happened, when he first got arrested and all this came out, I remember hearing that Al dated Marguerite first. I heard the story. And then when I saw the documentary, I said, oh, yeah, that just confirmed the story. I said, okay, then. So y'all see who this man was. Andrew say, Andrew, you feel like that was his man too? Okay. So 1973 is when things start switching. They get a new coach up at Buffalo. The offensive line, they call them the electric company. The offensive line is protecting. And O.J. Simpson ends up breaking Jim Brown's record for 2,000 yards in one single season. and he became the league MVP. And from there, it was up and stuck, right? For the rest of his football career, even though, the Buffalo Bills never won a Super Bowl or anything like that, he was the man every year. He was the man every year. Yeah, Lou Saban, absolutely. He was the man every year. Then we see the Hertz commercial where he gets the Hertz endorsement. And that, again, this is the first time they said we see a black man that became a national spokesperson for a national brand, like one of the top brands, right? Hertz was the number one car rental company at the time. Thank you, Andrew, for the super chat. He said, I think Al was OJ man. Remember they said Al got in front of a gun for OJ. Ain't no way. Yeah, ain't no way. Yeah, I'm with you on that one, good boy. I am with you on that one. Thank you for the super chat. Mwah. And here was another little microaggression that I picked up on that I don't remember picking up on the first time. The guy who was, I want to say he was the head of Hertz or something like that. He was one of the executives that did the campaign. He said, O.J. Simpson was black, but was still good looking with white features. The fuck? What you mean black but still good looking with white features? Al Cowens was actually slow. He's definitely on the spectrum. If you talk to him in person, you see how he remained friends with OJ and put up with everything. Oh, well, I don't know him like that. But thank you, Just Me Boo. Thank you. Marnie. No, he didn't meet Nicole till after. Well, I don't know. Let me not say that. I don't know. Let me not say that because I don't know. So then they started talking about, of course, the Hertz and all of the success, and then we find out about wanted to erase. Oh yeah, so wanted to erase race. He was brainwashed into erasing his color. So I'm sure that was a quote that somebody said. So at this time, he decided to retire. He was done with professional football. He was ready to move into acting. He was ready to move into other things and explore other opportunities. Now, they said that at this time, Marguerite felt like she was a single mother, right? Because OJ was out doing his thing. He was out partying and having a good time and hanging out and all that great stuff. And she was, living and taking care of their kids. And she felt like she was a single mom. They also, we meet Rob Kardashian. We find out that they met in like 1970. So they met like at the very beginning of his football career because he was drafted in 1968. So they met, and he said, there was an interview with him. I think it was his deposition for his civil case, I believe it was. But then he talked about how him and OJ, they were friends, but they did business together, but they also socialized. So we got to meet that. And then we get to how he met Nicole Simpson. Here's where everybody is just, see, again, you're not going to piss on my leg and tell me it's raining. Nicole Simpson was an 18-year-old waitress. Wait a minute. Marnie says there was some revisionist history going on with OJ and Nicole. She really did with OJ here. They met in California. She moved here. So you're saying that he met Nicole while he was still in the NFL? Is that what you're saying? Well, let me say this. I don't know. Do you live in Buffalo? Okay. He used to be seen out with a young white blonde. What, to be honest, Marnie, that could have been anybody. And I'm going to tell you why. I'm not saying you're wrong because you sound like you up in that area. And I'm sure people knew what was going on up in the area. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying based on his obsession with white, I feel like that could have been any number of white women. However, I can believe that it was her. And I'm going to tell you why in a second. I feel like two things. I feel like either scenario could be true. Either it was any number of white women, because when they was talking about how all them white women loved him down to USC, and when he played football, I said, oh, he was knocking them white women out even when he was back in college. He was. I thoroughly believe that. It was her. Denise testified in a deposition. Okay, thank you, Marnie. Okay. But let me tell you why I believe that to be true. Why? Well, Marnie just confirmed it, but even before she confirmed it, here's why I believe that it could have been true. Because I'm always very leery when we hear these stories about people and conveniently they're just right at the age of consent. They're just right there at the age of consent. So here's where the Simpson family is pissing on my leg. I mean, Nicole's family is pissing on my leg and tell me it's raining, right? So Nicole, they talked about that Nicole was a waitress. She was 18 years old, right at the age of consent, right? Right there on the age of consent. 18 years old, was a waitress at this private club. Now, this is a private club. It was an invite-only elite private club where it was just the who's who was in this club. This wasn't just a regular old restaurant. This wasn't just okay, well, only rich people can afford to eat here. No, it was a private club. And you had to be somebody, quote unquote, somebody to even be a member. It was invite only. So I'm saying that for a reason. Allegedly, because I can only go by what was in the documentary. Allegedly, he saw her down to the club and immediately liked what he saw. Said, I'm going to marry her. Took her out on a date. Allegedly, according to the documentary, allegedly, she came home from the first day. She was sharing an apartment with, I think he was her cousin or something, but this guy. And allegedly, when she came home from her first date with O.J. Simpson, her pants were ripped, or her jeans were ripped. Do you know how much force you got to have to rip a pair of jeans? Jeans, denim. You know how hard you got to work to rip denim? And when her friend asked her, girl, what happened to your pants? Her response was, well, he got a little forceful. He got a little forceful. And her friend said that he told her, girl, don't you think that's a bit much on the first date? Like, don't you think that is like a little warning sign on the first date? And she said, but I like him. Next thing you know, allegedly, according to the documentary, next thing you know, he was offering to put her up in an apartment and buy her a car. And her friend said that he said to her, girl, you know he married. You know he married. And Nicole said to her friend, but I like him. And then this the part where I said, now you're pissing on my leg and tell me it's raining. They gonna say, her sister gonna say, we didn't even know who he was. We didn't grow up watching football. We had no clue. Bullshit. 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 And this what I mean. What you not gonna do? What you not gonna do is spend a whole hour and 20 minutes because we didn't get this. Nicole didn't enter the chat into the last 15, 20 minutes of the episode. What you're not going to do is spend a whole hour and 15 minutes telling me how this man was the second coming and that everybody loved him and he was in all these national ads and he broke all these records and he was the man from here to Japan, and now he was an actor and he was making Hollywood movies and he was a member of an elite private club that was members only, that she just happened to be a waitress in, which means that she saw who came up in there. She knew that anybody who walked in that door had money. She knew that anybody who walked in that door had prestige. And I understand that Google did not exist and you couldn't Google people, but you certainly could be like, well, who is he? Who is he? O.J. Simpson. That's like trying to tell somebody you don't know who LeBron James is just because you don't watch basketball. Stop playing with me. Stop playing with me. And Rick James came out and said he introduced OJ to Nicole because Rick was messing with her sister Denise. I'm going to say this, and I know that, you know, the 1970s were a different time and things were different, and I understand that sometimes people could even have fake IDs and stuff. But I'm going to tell you, and that's why I said, Marnie, I hear what you're saying. But that's why in my mind, I was like, thank you, Black Swan, for becoming a member. Thank you, my love. But that's why in my mind, I was like, the math ain't mathing for me because it don't make sense. Hey, Angela, hey, boo. It doesn't make sense for me. Y'all know how I am. Like, don't piss on my leg and tell me it's raining. You mean to tell me this private elite club hired this 17/18-year-old to be a waitress? I don't know. I didn't feel that in my spirit. I didn't feel like that. I didn't feel like that in my spirit. If you lived in Southern California, you knew OJ. Hell, if you lived anywhere, he played in Buffalo. So that's East Coast, West Coast. Like, you knew, and you're right, Kia. He was the second coming down to we talked about that. So, you know, at USC. Again, you're not going to spend this whole first episode telling me about all the great things that O.J. Simpson did and all the accolades he had and how he was the second coming and everybody worshiped him and everybody loved him from white to black to green to brown to old to young. You're not going to tell me that this man had national commercials, Hertz, Chevrolet. He was in Hollywood blockbuster movies. And you mean to tell me this 17-year-old child did not know who he was? I don't believe it. And that's bullshit. Especially if they met the way they said they met, which I'm not convinced that's how they met. Let's be clear. I'm not saying I believe the story. I'm just telling y'all what the documentary said. Okay. I ain't saying I believe that story. I'm not even gonna sit here and say that I believe that on their second date, he said, I want to get you an apartment and buy you a car. I ain't gonna say it, but it was that quick. Because OJ didn't seem like he was no fool. First of all, I believe OJ had been sleeping around on Marguerite from damn near day one, okay? Because he couldn't have respected her. I'm going to tell you why he couldn't have respected her, because of the way he got her. And I mean, you listen, Marguerite, I don't know you, and I don't mean no disrespect to you and your churn, but he couldn't have respected you because of how he got you. I'm just calling a thing a thing. Now, that's my opinion. So I feel like he had been sleeping around on you for a long time. And you're not going to sit here and convince me that every woman that got his attention, he bought a car for and all that. Now, he probably bought him a little something, little trinkets, little this, little that. But you ain't going to tell me that on the second date, he was just like, here you go. Here's everything. You probably didn't know his face, but you knew his name. Exactly, Andrew. Exactly. Tanya Brown is the younger sister, so she probably didn't know. Nicole definitely. Look, Nicole knew. Nicole knew. She definitely knew by the time. And then this is another reason why I'm again, I got it for everybody, because Nicole, you knew that man was married. Let's throw all the rest of that out the window. You willingly walked into a situation where you were having an affair with a married man. 17, 18, 19, 20. I don't care. You knew what you was doing. You knew that man was married. This what I don't understand. You ain't know he was O.J. Simpson, but you knew he was married. He couldn't keep that secret from you. Clearly, he kept his identity from you. He couldn't keep that secret that he was a married man. Right, Marty. They said that Marguerite lived in L.A. with the kids. She had a house in the Hollywood Hills, and he lived in Buffalo. Right. So you're right. And Marguerite said he lived like a single man, baby. Yes. Yes. And listen, and you ain't gonna sit here and tell me that Marguerite didn't know. Child. So OJ Simpson was on Monday Night Football. Samsonite luggage. He was running through the airport. That's what I'm saying. Like, again, you ain't gonna piss on my leg and tell me it's raining. They didn't care that he was a married man. They never do. Exactly. They didn't care. So that's my whole point, you guys. That's where part one ends. Part one ends where he meets Nicole. So the other thing too about part one, at the very end, they were like, her little friend that she was living with at the time, allegedly living with at the time, was like, and that's why the way things ended was just so sad, because they really, really, truly were a love story. I'm sorry, a love story don't start with somebody else's husband. I don't care what listen. And anybody in the chat, if that's your love story, I don't mean no disrespect, but that's just how I feel. A love story don't start with somebody else's husband. Sorry. Now, I'm not saying that she deserved what happened to her. I'm not even saying that, if OJ was beating her like they said he was, we're going to get to that in the next episode. I'm not saying she deserved that either. All I'm saying is a love story don't start with somebody else's husband. Right. A love story don't start with ripped jeans. I'm just saying. Right. Must be the money. Exactly, Andrew. A love story don't start with SA. The Lord is never going to send you somebody else's spouse. That is not your blessing. Thank you, Ebby. Say it for the people in the back, honey. I knew Ebby was going to chime in on it. I knew Ebby had some word for us. The Lord is never going to send you somebody else's husband. I'm just telling you what I know. Now, anyway, y'all, that is part one. I'm about to watch part two now. So if I can get part two tonight, then we're going to talk about part two tomorrow. Don't forget that Friday evening, I will be doing my panel with Shade in the City, where we will be discussing the first episode of Never Ever Met, whatever this daggone show is, down to the own, honey. Yeah, something else I was going to have. Don't forget Monday, April the 29th is my interview with Winter from Love and Marriage DC. What else we got coming down the pipe, child? I think that's what we have coming up. Something else I wanted to tell y'all, and I don't forgot now. But something I was going to tell y'all at the beginning, but I said I'll wait till the end of the live. I want to thank everybody who is supporting my affiliate links. When I checked the analytics today, it looks like 18 of you guys have clicked links. Now, I know that doesn't mean that everybody bought something when you click the link, but I appreciate you guys checking it out. It may not be nothing you want. You may get to the link and you don't see nothing you want to pick up. You may not even have the money to do it, but I appreciate your that you guys are clicking the links. Again, I use Juvia's Place products tonight. You guys know that the majority of the lipsticks that I wear are Juvia's Place. I use the Juvia's Place foundation. And since I need some new concealer, and I'm going to buy Juvia's Place concealer next time I go to Ulta. Something else I was going to say. Oh, let me ask y'all this real quick. Are y'all interested in doing a watch along? So Legion, I mean, I know it's old news now. I know the Reese Tisa story. We've moved on. But y'all remember the guy that interviewed Legion, and we did a review of the interview with Legion. Baby, Legion then came back around trying to drop his receipts. And let's just say he should have just shut the hell up. So are y'all interested in doing a watch along, or are we over the Legion Reese Tisa situation? Are we just okay with knowing that this Negro is a liar? Y'all let me know. Maybe I should put it on my community wall. Y'all can vote. Y'all let me know. Okay, y'all want to watch it? Okay, all right. I may not do it tonight. I may not do it tonight, but we'll do it. Right? Okay, you saw it, Rainbow. Okay, okay. I see. Yes. Okay, it may not be tonight because listen, I can only do one thing because here's the thing. If I do that tonight, I'm not gonna do it tonight. We'll do it either tomorrow or we'll do it Friday. But we'll do it over sometime in the next couple of days. Because, baby, I watched that thing and I said, he should have just kept his mouth shut. Because the reality is we have moved on. Like, the majority of the people have literally moved on. We're not thinking about you, Legion. We don't care. I literally just stumbled across the interview because I ended up subscribing to the guy that did the interview the first time. So I stumbled on it. I said, what? So he just did it like yesterday or the day. It's recent. It's within the last couple of days. So we'll do a watch along either tomorrow or Friday. We'll do a watch along. No, because tomorrow we do the chasing panel. Oh, and I think it's my turn. So we'll do one or the other tomorrow. Either it'll be OJ Simpson or it'll be the watch along. It'll be one or the other. All right, you guys. Well, we're going to get it over the next couple of days. We got a lot to cover. All right. You're currently watching the doc again. Yeah. Thank you. So, Ferry. Am I saying that right? Ferry. So part 2 will be either tomorrow or Friday. We're going to get it, y'all. We got some stuff to do. We got some content to cover. Okay. And I told you guys I'm getting back to my reviews. So I got some reviews to get out. With that being said, the panel is Friday. Oh, you know what? Because the episode will come on till tomorrow night. Duh. So the panel is Friday. Okay. So tomorrow, we'll do something tomorrow. But let me get off of here now so I could go watch part 2 so I could have the option. All right, you guys. I will talk to y'all later. Mwah. Peace.